There, isn't it? Right, okay. Firstly, I welcome everybody here to the Malvern Community Board. I will just introduce people as we go round, but Therese, the CEO, of course, of the council.
Sharon.
Sharon, what do I say?
It's all right, I answered it, don't worry.
I've just promoted you.
She really is the CEO.
Sharon, rather. Councillor Mugford Bob as a councillor. John Very, Kelvin Payne, Phil Freeman, Therese and Charlotte. And today we welcome our, we've been talking about it for some time, to have a youth representatives on this community board, because as I've said to both these young people, they are the future. So I'm just going to briefly introduce Felix and Anna. So this is their first meeting. While they're not here officially at this stage, because there's a wee bit more complications to go through, which they are aware of, but I do welcome you all to this meeting, and particularly to our public and the two staff members, Thomas and Ben. So a cordial welcome. And of course to our regular attender. Nice to see you again. So what I'm going to do is just ask Anna perhaps to stand and just tell us a little bit about herself, what she is well, I know she's going to contribute, but I mean, just tell us a wee bit, and Felix will do the same thing. Yes. Well, yes, you should, because then it's live stream.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Anna. I've lived in Darfield for about 13 years now. I'm a teacher's assistant for a drama class. I've been doing that for about 3 years, and for 2 of those I was volunteering. And yeah, I'm my final year of high school. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm Felix, and I'm in year 9 this year, so my first year of high school. I live just out of West Melton. I really enjoy parkour, which is a different sport, and I'd love to be an actor one day. So that's a bit about me.
We'll now move into the public forum, and Chris Stewart from Arthur's Pass.
Thank you. Thanks for having me today. I was actually on my way into Christchurch anyway, so I thought I'd come along to the board meeting, but there's a couple of issues I'd like to talk about. I'm the chair of the Arthur's Pass Association. I'm a passionate Arthur's Pass person. I started work there many years ago and became a park ranger. Worked in a few other places. Went back to Arthur's Pass 16 years ago and retired as senior ranger there 4 or 5 years ago. So that's my background. I've been love the place up there, and we've got now a permanent house up there, permanent residence at Arthur's Pass. I'm also involved with the fire brigade and the civil defence and something else, wildlife trust, and about everything else in Arthur's Pass. There's 2 issues I really want to touch on today. One is some power poles that have been moved on the Cass Strait. And most of you will know the area, and pictures of it here. Great, thanks, Therese, for having those for us. This issue caught us by surprise a few weeks ago when the power poles that were moved to beside the highway. Just a bit of history with these power poles. When about 40 years ago, the power poles were put in to supply power from the Castle Hill substation right through to, they actually go right through to Coralin. But they were going through here at that time, 40 years ago, and there was a big outcry that because Orion or whoever were doing the power poles then, we're going to put them right beside the highway and spoil some of the great views that you all know, probably the beautiful views you get through going through that highway, particularly coming down that straight off as you leave Lake Pearson and come down that nice big straight, come over the hill and down, you see the mountains in the background, and coming down that beautiful big straight there onto into the Cass Basin. The power poles. So there's a great big outcry then, and as a result of that, they decided with the council and the farming community also agreed to have the power poles pushed back from the main highway and establish what was then meant to be a landscape type protection zone around the highway, both around the highway actually and the main railway line that went through that area. So that happened at that time, and they put the power poles, particularly in this Cass Basin area, right back against the hill. But then 4 weeks ago, whenever it was, suddenly the power poles were being moved to right beside the highway and spoiling some of that beautiful view you get as you go through the Cass Basin. We followed that up a bit and got some good help from council staff in terms of the rules that governed why they could be allowed there. And I don't know if this was circulated, was it, the rules? That was? Great. Well, that was what we got back from the council, saying they had checked this issue. Unfortunately, it was after the fact that the power pole's already there. It doesn't sound as though either Orion or the farmer asked the council, when you think about that, until they'd done it, or until the council came back to them. May be corrected on that. But what we're really worried about now is we'll accept now that some of these power poles are there, and they were moved to allow the farm to, I think, to put in central pivot irrigation in there. They've been moved away from the central pivot area. So the rules said something about 300-metre zone, which is meant to be protected around either side of the highway. But it does allow for what they call ancillary structures to be put in. They say the ancillary structures have to be less than 8 metres high and less than 1 metre in width. We would argue that, in fact, these poles are probably greater than 1 metre in width, but that's another matter. We probably accept now that the poles that are there have to stay. They're put in, and there's been quite a lot of money spent for that to happen. But what we're worried about now is this setting a precedent for moving the power poles either by Orion, because they now see that it can happen, to be right beside the highway, coming down, particularly off that nice straight from Lake Pearson. So that will spoil that great view as you come out over that hill. So we're particularly worried about that. What I would like to see is whether the community board support this, have got any comments about this, and whether we can move together to change, see if we can get a rule change to specifically exclude any more movement of those poles close to the highway. Yeah, they moved the poles away on Craigieburn Cutting and in the Castle Hill Basin a bit. They moved the power poles, some of the big transmission poles are there, but the power poles, the smaller ones, have been moved away from the highway. So that's the first little issue for me. Wondered about the board's opinion about that. The other secondary thing that we are worried about is why the board wasn't happy with the cycle trail, and we don't understand that to an extent, and we're a bit disappointed that we weren't consulted about that as part of the community board area. I personally have been involved in cycle trails from right from the first one, from the Otago Central Rail Trail, which went in those days, and I was involved with that pretty heavily, getting it instigated. I reckon it's a great thing to have. I know it's going to cost. They cost money. We know they're going to cost a lot of money, but we think it's. I was also involved when ECAN were looking at putting a cycle trail in from Arthur's Pass to the sea. So we've been very supportive of that. keen to see it. And I know it's a long-term thing, but we were disappointed that the board didn't support that through the long-term plan. So, two things from me. Anything else? I'm happy to talk about after space, but any questions?
Okay, I'll ask for questions in a minute.
Sure.
You wanted to turn anything off in the meantime. Sharon, you wish to make a comment?
Just for board members. So in terms of the electricity poles which have been relocated, they do comply with the district plan and no resource consent is required. So just in terms of asking questions, I thought it was just useful for you to be aware of that. And the team are still investigating whether activities like pivot irrigators, deer fences, earthworks and vegetation clearance comply. So just for your information.
Further questions? Calvin?
Thanks, Chris, for coming along and talking about the power poles. They look like a bit of an eyesore, but obviously they've been moved for a reason, and you're possibly quite right to accept where they are now. But I've got a question. This is a general one about power poles, because I'm concerned. I live just off Hoskins Road, which has a cycleway along it now, a nice new one. And when we've got power poles, concrete ones, all the way along it, and they're very close to one, the cycleway, and two, the road. And I'm actually quite concerned that there doesn't seem to be any rules that say that they shouldn't be as close to the road as they are, because we've got 110k roads in a lot of Selwyn like that, where a car's going along. I know it's a nice straight road, but if somebody gets a blowout there, they're going to go straight into a power pole and kill themselves and maybe their passengers. So I'm not sure. I'm asking the question, are you aware of any regulations that state the distance from the road the power pole should be?
No, I'm not really, but what I can say about what they've done here is put the poles behind the fence, which they said was a safety measure, but yeah, it doesn't take away from its sort of landscape detraction. But yeah, I agree. It's the further you can keep those poles away from the highway like this, the better.
It reduces the risk. Yeah. So maybe I can ask that general question of council.
In terms of the district plan is what needs to be referred back to, and the district plan gives guidance around such matters, and similar to this, where the poles are placed for here meets the requirements within the district plan. So the district plan is the source to go to look if there's any queries.
Okay, thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Chris.
Any further questions? Now, in regards to the other question you asked, perhaps Phil or John may make comment on the reasons why, perhaps in our opinion, why we didn't support it.
Yeah, how you going, Chris? Yeah, so the main reason that it wasn't supported was the fact of the imminent rise of all the rates and the huge pressure put on it, and the fact that we also represent across the ward, as in areas that the cycle track wouldn't go through and doesn't affect, which is probably the majority of the communities of interest that are involved in the ward. The ones that it goes through, yes, they would get a benefit, but the ones that it doesn't go through, there would probably be no benefit at all to have it, and that was the main reason, is the pressure put on by the increases in the rates and the expenditure that the council were trying to do, and we were trying to limit it to then concentrate on trying to save Sheffield Pool and other things. So that was probably the reason why MCB said that they weren't for that. So it was more of a concession. Does that sort of explain?
Yeah, I can understand that to a certain extent, but I have to say that the cycle trails I've been involved with, like the Otago Central Rail Trail, have done not only just good for the communities they pass through, but for the whole, the whole of Otago, basically.
Yeah, but also it's the fact that there was a lot of funding being asked from the council, and then that, I don't know if Wakatahu had actually confirmed that they were going to put their money in, and they still haven't, as far as I know. Sharon could answer that.
Yeah, so we're waiting. We expect to get Wakatahi confirmation in September around all funding.
So when we were making our decision, there wasn't anything, they hadn't confirmed they would have any funding, and you could have put yourself out there and put put that money aside and then it wasn't actually going to be used. You know what I mean?
Yes, I'll apologise for the failure to include you in the briefing first, and you can rest assured that I'll work with the chair and the rest of the committee to make sure in future that oversights like that don't happen.
Yeah, I'd just like to make a quick comment as well, Chris. Thank you for coming along and bringing it to our attention, because it's not until people come along and bring it to our attention we can really see. And I understand you're from Arthur's Pass. I mean, it's an awesome area. We've been up there once so far, and I'd like to go many more. Well, actually, I've been twice since we became on board. Once was for tourism reasons, which is good for you too. So I'd like to go up again, and you know, I want to go and drive past those power poles myself. So I can just say that great, thanks for coming along, presenting it to us. We're now fully aware of it, and all the members will be concentrating on it. And as John has already said, we'll be looking at it in the future to make sure we consult with everybody possible within the Malvern Community Board area. Thank you very much.
Okay. Okay, is there any further questions? If not, Chris, thank you for your attendance. And again, as I said to you earlier, you're welcome to stay. Thank you. Right, the next one is Alistair Frizzell. So I introduce you, Alistair, and we look forward to what you wish to discuss with us.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So, Alistair Frizzell, we've been a resident of Kirwi, well, basically all my life, farmed in that district. The reason I'm before you today was suggested that I come and talk to you. About 18 months or so ago, with changed family situation, my wife and I decided to sell off my parents' house in 4 hectare section. That we'd purchased at the time of their death. That was part of the farm and separated from the farm some many years ago. And whilst I've prepared a paper that ultimately, hopefully, will send to the council with details of some of the challenges we've had in carrying out that subdivision, I wanted today to perhaps just make you perhaps cognizant of some of the challenges of what basically should have been a simple subdivision that nearly 18 months, 15, 16 months later, we still haven't been able to finalise that subdivision. So what we were looking at from the 4 hectares, we hope to divide that in half, because we had a local young family or that wanted to buy a rural section. They couldn't afford a 4 hectare one and came to us and indicated to us that they were interested in perhaps half that area, bare land, 2 hectares. Under the council's plan, we could subdivide that. We set aside, I think it was 10, 20 hectares of the farm to covenant that, so that wouldn't be subdivided, and started on the subdivision, as I said, about 16 months ago. There's a number of challenges, and I've detailed them here. I won't go through them today, but if I could just raise about 3 points on the stages through, and there's about 14 steps in here that I've listed, but a couple of them were, one was being captured under the highly productive land. So basically what we had was 4 hectares, half of it, 2 hectares, was effectively where the house was and sites around it with fruit trees, and so basically subdivided. The other 2 hectares also has water races around 3 sides and a Central Plains main feeder line through it. So there was effectively about 1 hectare of lifestyle block that was captured under the highly productive that we had to prove was not going to effectively destroy agriculture in the Canterbury Plains. So about 1 hectare of unproductive land already that we had to prove was not productive and not degrading Canterbury's production. It took us some 7 months to get that through the system. In fact, I initially made application to it. They wanted peer reviewed. I got a peer review done. The council then wanted an independent peer review. None of their normal reviewers were prepared to take it on, because I think just the lack of definition of what was required. Council finally found a person in the North Island to do the peer review. Came back to the council. The council themselves then did a peer review. We weren't happy with that. It then went out to the commissioner for another peer review, and eventually after 7 months was approved. The interesting thing with that 1 hectare is that it, again, basically in Brown Top hasn't been running, I think, for the last 40 years or 30 years when we divided off. Because it was costing or has costed so much to do that, we had 2 other 4 hectare blocks on the farm that we divided off about 30 years ago. Highly productive, irrigated, dairying, probably grossing over $3,000–4,000 a year each of those blocks, or per hectare, sorry, for those blocks. And given that we went to the council and said, look, we don't want to sell all that productive land off. Can we shift it so that we just sell half a hectare, perhaps, if each of those 4 hectare blocks? The short answer was, if you do that, you're altering the boundary and they have to be incorporated back into the farm again. So we've sold off now 8 hectares of highly productive land. That goes straight through because it's got historical use, and yet it took us 7 months to fight over 1 hectare of unproductive land. Those are the rules. But it seems to me that if you're being a pragmatic person, that there's some stupid rules in there. I'll bring one other one, was the water supply. Given that we needed to the addition of 1 restricted water supply to the system, there's currently our house went onto the Kirwi water supply with the original scheme, high pressure supply back that went in, I think, the early 80s, late 70s, that we went onto that when it was instigated. High pressure supply, 1 more supply needed to be added, assuming that the 30mm pipes past us were at capacity. That extra restricted supply would have needed perhaps a 15mm or a 1/2 inch pipe to supply it 300 meters long. The council's requirement was for an upgrade of a 60mm OD pipe. Now, for 300 meters, not the worst thing in the world. If a farmer was doing the job, the pipe cost us about $5,000. The mold ploughed in and put it in approximately $5,000. The cost to us for the council to do that, we won't get much change out of $50,000 to do that upgrade. And that upgrade is sufficient to supply about another 10 to 12 houses at full high pressure supply, not 1 restricted supply. So that exercise again is still ongoing. That's been about 3 months to get that exercise in place, or to put those things in place. The kicker from that one is that in those changes, now the council has decided that under, as I understand today, the information I have from a proposed rule change, that blocks more than, I think, 200 or 2,000 square meters are not allowed high pressure supplies, have to go into trickle supplies, restricted supplies. And so our house now, which has had a full supply for some 50 years, the council has now said that we have to be degraded down to a restricted supply because of changes to the water supply in front of us. Now, just from a moral point of view, it raises some interesting issues that, given that 40, 50 years ago, we paid for that full supply and the water was available then, what has happened to that water that we paid for? Have other people that the council now cannot supply that supply to us? And the second question you would have to ask is, why should there be a discrimination that just because somebody owns more than 2,000 square meters, they are not entitled or cannot get the quality of supply that somebody on a smaller section can? Why are we discriminated against to get a poorer service? And my last one is that surely councils are there to provide better services to ratepayers and to improve services, not to downgrade them. And I just wonder, from a broader view, just the principle in this country that we seem to be downgrading services. I would have thought that our aim should be to improve services rather than reduce services and downgrade services with time. So that's just to bring your knowledge. I've prepared, you don't want to hear this, I've got about a 5 or 6 page document there with that and other concerns we have that I hope to present eventually to the council. But I thought if I could just come along today and give you a couple of wee heads up of some of the challenges that we have had as an individual with that exercise.
Thank you, Alistair. It's question time. Councillor Mugford.
Yeah, just one thing, it's 2,500 square metres, because I've been, because I've been having discussions with staff at the.
I
at the
apologise for my lack of
Yeah,
details.
yeah,
I
no,
hadn't
but
received
it
those
is.
really principles or-
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll go after you.
Go on. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So Alistair, in your dealings, which are probably not insignificant with the council, how have you found the ability to get clear, concise information from the council?
Can you turn your thing on?
We have been using a gentleman called Graham Fowler to help us assist us with our applications in the council, so we haven't been doing it solely alone. I don't know whether I should quote him at all, but him and some of the other ones we talked to, some of the comments we've had is that that the council appears to use a lot of external contractors, that they're not confident to make decisions, and that decisions then have to come back to council staff for ratification, and or then in a lot of cases, decisions that are fairly mundane or automatic ones are then referred to commissioners for review. And I mean, in our case with the highly productive land one, that was basically one technical paper plus then 1, 2, 3, about 5 reviews or peer reviews virtually of it to get it over the line for a minor event. So that one, and also concerns about again the engineers, and we've found that in terms of replying to emails, replying to phone calls. For example, we've been to the council offices a couple of times. On one occasion, we knew that the engineer we're dealing with was in his office but wasn't answering either the receptionist's calls or other notifications through. And just recently, again, when we asked to meet with an engineer to perhaps discuss some of these problems, I think the return email was to the effect that it didn't see any advantage in meeting face to face to resolve some of the problems. So those have been our experiences, and also those that deal with the council, the developers, or the people like Graham Fowler have made similar comments.
Okay, thank you, Sharon.
Thank you. I was made aware this afternoon, just as I was on my way to Darfield. So I'm going to offer to meet with you. So I've been doing that with a number of developers.
Right.
Look, some of the themes that you're talking about have not been an uncommon experience.
Yeah.
And so there's a couple of things that we're wanting to change around. One of the challenges is there's been a significant influx over the last 2 years around subdivision requests. And I think, to be fair, the staffing hasn't kept a pace at council to deal with the workloads, and hence that's why a lot of the work has been subcontracted out. And the same applies for the engineering as well. Notwithstanding that, that's still not the outcome that we're choosing for our community to have. So I've been meeting with a number of developers, and we've been collecting a range of the themes of the challenges, and what are the things that we need to do to overcome that. Just for you to be aware, we are in the process of appointing 2 key roles, and their sole job is to work with developers to help facilitate the process. So we've called them, for the want of a better word, strategic relationship roles, to facilitate developers and enabled from the resource consent right through to the engineering, because they're two separate divisions within council, and that's where we've come unstuck in terms of some of the relationship. So we've been trialing that with a couple of developers and case managing, for the want of a better word, and that has certainly made a significant difference, which has given us the confidence to go out and appoint two roles to look at being able to do that for developers. So I'm really keen to sit down and have a conversation with you and see if we can get you connected into getting some case management to get some resolution. Again, it's not uncommon. And again, the district plans has been challenging too. So we have two district plans, the old district plan and the new one. And until all of the reviews are complete on the new district plan, we have to run both district plans at the same time. And I think there's a communication story there, because that's really challenging to do that. And as each review for the new district plan gets resolved, more and more of that becomes applicable. And when the last review is complete, then the new district plan. But again, it's about how we communicate that out to the community, that at the moment we're having to work with two district plans, and that creates a number of challenges. But again, we haven't told the community about that to enable developers to understand. So these are the kind of things we've become aware of. So I look forward to sitting down and with you and your developer, Graham Fowler, and just having a conversation.
Yeah, and I'm certainly aware that that was part of the problem, that the changeover between the two plans kind of changed some of the goalposts when we were part way through, that we then had to start again and rework it. And also, not that I necessarily want to have sympathy with the council, but just the fact that that highly productive land legislation seems to me that, you know, it was a good idea and the principle is fine, but it was kind of thrown out there without the detail guidance for councils to be able to do it. And with my education background, I was able to do the technical paper for that, and so did quite a bit of background research into it. But in meeting the conditions, certainly, yeah, I could see that council would have some concerns about how they certainly set precedences in terms of that legislation. But I mean, for me to be tied up, or for us to be tied up for 7 or 8 months is not good.
It's all about customer service and how we're providing the customer service, and we're acutely aware of that. And just for you to know that we've recognised it and we've started making some changes around it. But I look forward to sitting down and hearing about your particular circumstance, and I'll give you my telephone number before you leave.
Okay, thank you. One further question, Kelvin.
Yeah, it's a comment really. Thanks, Alistair, for coming along and bringing it to our attention again. But also thank you for spending a lot of time and a lot of money supporting what sounds like some of our young people trying to get on the property ladder, which I think is very admirable. Sounds like it's significant sums and time for you. But I think we as a council, I'm not actually on council, but I'm on Malvern Community Board. I think we should be asking our council to do things more efficiently. And I think you should take up Sharon's offer, definitely. Getting direct contact with her, and take your full document to direct to council. And I can't speak for the rest of the community board. We will discuss it, and we will do our best to support you and trying to get things done efficiently, because that's what it's about. It sounds a very simple situation initially.
Yeah.
But we should be able to deal with it effectively for you. Yeah. Thank you again.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you, Alistair. Peter, do you want to address this in any way at all? Right. Be quick.
Hello, Peter Stock. I'd just like to raise some issues for Phil concerning the nice trimming job that I think the Go Hororata committee got done on the hedgerow down out of Hororata there, backs on the domain. Good, quick contracting job, really neatly, tidily done. And the snaps end solves I sent the other week and have been completed down on Hobbs Street. Yeah, I had some excellent feedback after the meeting last month, very proactive approach from Sharon. And I got feedback from her executive officer, Kylie Hunt, and I gave her a call and said I appreciated the feedback. So I think maybe I might have been a bit over the top of the last meeting, not knowing all the information. But on that note, I went to Go Hororata committee meeting last year, and the issue was raised of having the main gateway for the Hororata domain shifted. I have since heard that the surveyors were there the other week looking into something like that there. Might have been last week, and I wondered whether it's going ahead. But at that Go Hororata meeting, I said, if you're going to shift the main gates, at least put a footpath along that opposite side of the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Peter. Phil.
How you going, Peter? Yes, the guy that was there last week for a week and a half, he was doing a asset check. So he was basically writing down all the assets that were on the domain. That's all he was doing. So that's why he's wandering around. Every fence post, every nail got measured and condition assessment. And yes, in the plan, when the entranceway gets shifted from the corner to down in the open bit, there will be full parking, off-road parking on the side of the road plus a footpath. So that's in that master plan if you look at it.
Okay, one quick answer, Peter.
What a blessing it is to have the good communication. Thanks very much, Phil.
We'll now move back to the agenda. Apologies. We have one apology from Sian. Yeah, right, Peter. Thank you. Nothing further. Would somebody move that we accept the apologies of Sian, please? Move John, seconded Calvin. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Identification of extraordinary business. I only have one item and I can talk about that at a later stage. We have an invitation from from Conterra for the board. We've been invited to go have a tour through it. So just bear that in mind. I'll ask you all just to put some dates to me so I can answer that particular question. That includes you people too. Okay, any conflict of interest? None. Confirmation of the minutes. Somebody prepared to move? Thank you, Phil. Second up, John. Open for discussion. Are there any amendments? Any alterations? If not, I will put them all in favour. Please say aye. Those against? Carried. Thank you. Move on to actions. Sharon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In terms of the Sheffield Pool Memorial Gates, just waiting for Sian to follow up. I don't think there's any further response for council staff we've identified, so that could be closed off. Report on Castle Hill trees to be circulated. Yeah, when that comes in ready, I don't have a timeline for that. Bob, I don't know if you're aware of a. Yeah, so hopefully in the next month or so with a bit of luck. As Peter said, we went back and followed up with Peter, and I just put the reply, and Peter was very happy with our follow-up, so that could be closed. Similarly, the acknowledging the Matariki and Malvern as a separate event, that information has been passed on to the comms and media team. Tree block in Coleridge. Phil, I found your email. I'm sorry I missed it in my midst of emails, and we've sent you a response to that. So you're happy that that's completed in terms of we've sent you the response. I'm not saying you're happy with the response. Yeah, that's cool. And in terms of preparing the proposal on a separate media platform, that really sits with Sian.
Okay. Thank you, Sharon. Finance team presentation. Thomas, just before you start, Thomas, I must congratulate you for being selected to the Ellesmere representative team. It's nice that Springston has been acknowledged. So no doubt you'll probably tell us, we can tell by your tallness where you're going to play, but it's hearty congratulations from the board for that selection.
Thomas, welcome, thank you. And thank you, board members, for your patience. I did say that once we got long-term plan out of the way, which has been a really key focus for the finance team, that we would get back to a bit more business as usual. So it's great, here we are in July. And for Thomas to be here to talk through the statement of financial performance and to answer any questions. So Thomas, would you like to just take the board members through any highlights and then take it from there?
Yeah. I don't know. I think most of you should have read it. So currently we have the statement of financial performance for 30th of June, which will be the end of the financial year. There is a note that as the meeting has kind of coincided with our year-end process, currently all the financial costs are not in the report. We had close of business, or essentially close of costs, on the 20th of June. So we haven't had time to update the report but at the next meeting there will be our final 30th of June report that will be available, and that will be the final costs for the Malvern Community Board. Attached is also the transactions that have made up all the costs from the report. We also have the financial budget that Calvin and sat down with Sharon. It's there for you guys to look at, and that will be the budget for the new financial year 24-25. And yeah, any questions on anything?
I've got some.
Calvin?
Thanks for coming along, Tom. Yeah, firstly on 23-24, my first question was, what was the date? And you've just confirmed it's the 20th of June that the costs are included. So I've got some concerns regarding that, because there could be some potentially large numbers there. One, obviously, is are you aware of any election costs still to come and when they'll be available?
No, we believe we've now got the final election costs. We followed up on that. So what's in the report now, there should be no more.
Okay. Yeah, one of those costs is still in the advertising expenses section. I believe it's the Buddle Finlay 778. That I understand should be in the election expenses section. It's just a moving of a number around, so it's not fundamentally changing anything. So that's the election cost. So that's a positive. Sorry, Tom. Are you? I can produce a manual list of this if you. The other one was, another one is, there's only three, is the remuneration overall. We're now currently shown, I'm not sure if there's some more remuneration costs to come. There may be. Oh, okay. So that may just clarify that. We look like we should be on budget to actual, we should be exactly correct because of the way it works, I believe. And we're some 3,600 inconsistent in the numbers. There's still that amount to spend. So maybe, yeah, that may clarify in the following numbers.
Yeah, I believe that it isn't fully up to date yet because of the councillors obviously get paid on the 15th after the month. So it just takes a while for it to come through. So I'm not sure what payroll's done, but I can confirm that it should be finalised by the next report for you.
Okay, thank you. The other one was vehicle expenses. Obviously, there may be some outstanding that people haven't claimed. And there's also some that may not have been approved yet. So I would assume that's a similar situation.
Yeah, because that all goes through payroll, so that will just flow through with the next report.
Yeah.
And yeah, essentially anything on the next report will be finalised, and anything that's missing, then we can look into it and make sure that it's there it's been included, and vehicle expenses have been paid for everyone.
Okay, thank you. And just to note, the support cost for the 23-24 year seems to be shown as 84,740. Is that finalised, or is that still?
No,
Okay.
the journal was done today. So it'll be again the next report. So essentially, with the timing of the meeting to when we can get the finalised numbers, just didn't work out the way it probably should have. So to get the best numbers for you.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. That's answered my questions. 23-24. 24-25. The number that we start off with is slightly different to the 23-24 output, and obviously that hasn't been confirmed yet. So that will come through correctly, I'm sure. It shows a revenue of 198,232, which I divided by 24 because that was the rate I was aware of at the time, the targeted rate. This is for Malvern Community Board, and that comes at not a precise number. It's 8,260 ratepayers. But I'm pleased to announce today, because I've just got my rate bill today, that the Malvern Community Board has only got a 4% increase in its targeted rate. So I think that's quite a positive thing. So it's now costing per ratepayer $25. And you know your parents won't be paying that because they're on the other side of Knights Road, which is not in Malvern Community Board area. So it's $25. So I divided it by 25 and again didn't get a precise number. So I'm just a bit concerned where the 198 comes from. It's somewhere around 8,000 ratepayers by the look of it. Yeah. And obviously that goes up and down. So
yeah, it's obviously very hard to guess how many ratepayers. Well, it's all really a guess for us. We have to take into account the growth, and we don't have a specific Malvern growth. We have to take the Malvern townships and get an average of then the rural community and kind of guess who's in Malvern. And so we don't have fully accurate figures on that, but it's a budget is a guess. And we hope that it will get close to it, but we can never be 100% sure that it will be, but it will get close.
Yeah, and the number that there's obviously our expenses section, which can confirm is to the draft that we discussed with Sharon with Bruce. So I can confirm that you've taken on board our comments and where we were maybe lacking and maybe needed to reduce budgets. So that's come through well. Although what I can see is that the support cost from council is simply the revenue that's projected minus our expenses. It results in a number that exactly maintains us at the same surplus. So is there any background to that cost?
So the main reason is the new model for Magic that we put in essentially is calculating everything on a step-by-step basis, and the rates is the last. So the rates figure is essentially a balancing number to get it to zero, and then we divide the rates number obviously by our rate payers to get the end rate for each Malvern Community Board ratepayer. So it's just how the system has calculated the rates. And it's a very complex and interesting way.
Yeah, the question I was asking was about the support cost.
Yeah.
How's that calculated? The rate cost, that's obviously calculated in a specific way. But that support cost.
The support cost is calculated before the rates.
Right.
So we've obviously got all the costs for all the council that support every other department in the council. And Malvern Community Board has a very small percentage of that, of the total cost of those support charges, which we have then, and that is, so essentially, I believe it's about 0.04% of the total costs that the Malvern Community Board takes, and that just happens, that's the number that there it is.
Okay, right, I think I can see where the figures are coming from, although the support's just based on the percentage of the overall. Okay, and so that what it looks to, from what I can see at the moment, is we've got a 99,619 surplus that we start off with, which I believe is from previous targeted rate. And we maintain that at the end of 25 financial year, we'll maintain that 99,619 surplus if we spend exactly to budget and the council charges exactly the support. So that looks like quite a positive situation in that we're still maintaining around 100,000 over the term of our community board at the moment as a surplus. So I'll talk to the other members about things to do with the surplus, but the actual nuts and bolts of the calculations, you've answered my questions. So thanks, Tom. Is there if anybody else has got any questions?
Are there any further questions? Phil? Oh, John, I beg your pardon. Put your lights on, fellas, so I know when you want to talk.
Thanks.
John.
Just a little bit perturbed about information appearing on one board report and it not being changed for the next board report. So, Mr. Chair, should the matters that Kelvin identified be put onto an action list so that we can actually check them off? Like the Buddle Finlays being transferred from advertising to legal, because they have been on for at least 2 meetings and unchanged.
Sharon?
And I think that's the purpose behind why we wanted Thomas to be in attendance, not having the financial team here present. What I would expect to see, and as you can see, Thomas has been making notes to see that that should change in the next meeting and the next set of finances.
So does that mean that we'll have someone from the financial team here at every meeting to make sure the actions are followed through on?
We shall have somebody from finance team each month to talk through to the finances and answer any questions. As I said prior to LTP and during LTP, we had our team prioritised elsewhere, but subsequent to that, they'll be attending our meetings.
The next question, Mr. Chair, is the support charge of 110,000. It just seems to me, from the back of the envelope work that I've done, that it's a fairly high service charge for a community board and the work that's done in Malvern, given the fact that we have minimal delegations. So there's not too much, from what I've been able to ascertain, backroom work. And I was just wondering whether it would be possible to provide us with, I know it's 0.42, I think, or something like that, but how did the council justify settling on 0.42 of whatever the bigger service operational? And I would find it helpful if that information could be provided with the agenda for the August meeting.
We will be having a bigger piece of work that looks through the course of the year, looking at how we distribute and apportion support services costs. So Malvern Community Board has a portion along with every other aspect of the business. So I would say that when it comes to when we're doing that piece of work, Malvern Community Board will be included in part of that. Because we need to review and refresh, because we haven't done that for quite some time, as to how the support services costs are apportioned. So I would say probably not next month, but as part of the wider project to look at how we are apportioning costs for support services across the whole organisation.
So probably by November?
I wouldn't like to give you a time frame on there, but I would like to think that we would have looked at that as we're pulling the next sets of budgets together.
Thank you.
Phil, did you want to make a comment, or are you okay? Okay. One more question.
Yeah, I'd just like to clarify. So, having thought about what you said, Tom, basically the $25 as it now is on my rate bill, is first calculated from the support cost from council, and then the remaining is worked out from the targeted rate and added together to get the $25. Not, I was under the understanding that $25 was the start point. Then we took our expenses out, and then the remaining was the council. So, am I right in that that's the way it's calculated? Because that seemed to be what you said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
essentially with the new model that we brought in through Magic, we had to change essentially the way we calculated everything. So we used to start with the rate and then get the income, expenditure, support costs, and then that would be our imbalance. But now we're doing, it goes the operational expenditure, capital expenditure, any loans, interest, support charges, any transfers, and then that would, all of those individually then would make up the rate for the Malvern Community Board. It's pretty simple. It's just the expenditure and then the support charges, and then that just gives us our rate and income to what we need to collect, and then we can divide that by the ratepayers, which will give us our rate.
Okay, thank you. No, that.
This is definitely the last.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair. The relevance of having a sustainable and evidence-based support charge is because in some of the reports that have gone to the representation subcommittee, there's been a figure that said this is how much the Malvern Community Board costs. And that's fair enough as long as it's justifiable and transparent. And out and about in my community engagement, people raise naturally, well, the council saying don't have community boards, and I can see that the expense of running the community board is significant. So that's the importance that I've placed on the issue, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I think that's a very good understanding. Any further? If there's nothing further, Thomas, I thank you as usual, and I will move that the financial report be received. Is there a seconder? John, you've seconded. Any further discussion on it? If not, I declare it carried.
Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Ben, welcome, and we look forward to telling us the future of Selwyn.
Yeah, let's get my crystal ball out and we'll carry on. Yeah, so we talked, I came in here in March and we talked about the area plans and some of the kind of broader conversation around that. And so I'll just run through what we've got out at the moment for consultation by Kiri Katoa Future Selwyn. So that this is our kind of overarching strategy for the district and what we're going to kind of follow as a council. So it sets set some high level outcomes that we're trying to achieve and some directions underneath that about what we're going to try and do as a council. It kind of puts together what our urban form will start to look like, what we're wanting to see there, and kind of drawing up a little picture about the district as a whole. So we're starting at that level for the district, and then we're going to work down into those area plans and other plans to achieve the outcomes that we've set here. And so those are those area plans that will get into the Malvern area plan. We'll start looking at the towns and the rural areas around it and how we can work on that. So that's how we're working. It's a web-based strategy, so hopefully you can jump on there and have a look. You'll find it easily on the Selwyn website. So we've got this. This is out.
Sorry, Ben, for those that haven't got access to IT, is there another option or another way that they can access the information?
Yeah, I think the comms team have got some good consultation stuff that we can pull out, and that's got the key elements within it, and
Yeah.
that can be shared as well.
So I think it would be really handy if the members of MCB can have hard copies. If you could arrange that, that would be great.
Yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
we'll send through a hard copy for that. So yeah, it's just open for consultation here. We're going to work through that till start of August. Hearings, hopefully, we're all sorted through to October. So the key elements of the strategy here at the moment, we've made a vision statement, and with the spirit of someone, we try and describe what it means. We've got these key outcomes, key directions, and the district picture alongside that. So, for instance, the outcomes we're looking at is a great place to call home, a healthy, restored environment, regenerative economy, and a sustainable, connected urban form. So those are the outcomes we're trying to achieve, and under that, we've got some outcomes associated with it, working our way through.
Sorry, Ben, I think it's worthwhile just indicating that this information has come through from 6 months, if not more, of workshops of which community have been engaged across.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I think
so-
just if you give a wee bit of background there, that it's not just something we've churned out of a back office. I think it's really helpful for
Yeah,
MCB to understand how some of the conclusions have been drawn. Yeah.
So we started reviewing the current district development strategy, and that has got some directions in it, and they will start to look very similar to you if you're looking at these ones. You've got the LTP 21 outcomes that we did then and the engagement part of that. You've got the LTP 24 engagement as well, and the conversations in there about what people wanted to see, and the outcomes in the LTP 24 should look very similar to these ones as well. There's other processes that we've been involved in. The district plan process also had engagement that's got some strategic directions in it as well. And we've had other conversations like the Greater Christchurch Partnership Spatial Plan work that also had a lot of engagement around what people wanted to see, especially in that Greater Christchurch area. So there's been a lot of conversations we've had over the last few years around these, what these outcomes could be. And so the goal here was to sort of try and collate all that into this document, so that helps drive us forward from this point on. Within Future Selwyn, there's a lot of our evidence base. You'll find some interactive maps around some of the key issues and around the environment, some of the flooding issues, but also some of the natural environments that we're trying to protect. There's good interactive tables around the population and household projections. You can break that down into townships or areas. We've kind of gone through finding out those key opportunities that we've got out of those kind of areas as well, to build up the strategy to get to there. Do you think it's easier if we try and get it running on here, or do you just want to talk about the
I would
process?
suggest, and how are you engaging with the community? Because I know that you've been out and about and there's been pop-up clinics. And again, I think, and what activity and engagement is there ongoing in the Malvern community? I think that's important for the Malvern Community Board to understand and participate or give other suggestions.
Would you comment further on that, Bob, when you give your verbal report?
I'll just see if I can find the drop-in dates and elements to be clear. Yeah, summon.
You want to quit?
Yeah, just there was
Bob?
a drop in Darfield here last Thursday, and I wasn't there, but one person arrived. So that was the consultation here so far with it in Darfield.
Thank you.
Could be worthwhile just sharing with the Malvern Community Board members any further engagement out here and just the groups that we're talking to, because I know it's wide ranging what you're doing, so that again they've got that visibility of conversations. have to answer now, just you can circulate it via Therese afterwards, Ben.
Yes, I'll try and find that consultation document to share and a summary of some of the engagement that's happened out here as well. Yeah, to share around. Did you need to run through it, or do you want to just us talk about it?
John?
Yeah. Ben, so would it be appropriate when you provide the community board with the hard copy information and I presume, as Sharon mentioned, that there'll be hard copy feedback forms that people can complete and send in?
Yeah, I believe
Sure.
they're around at the moment. And the consultation document, I think. Oh, you've got one there. There you go. This is the consultation document. I assume it'll be available in the library here with the submission form here you can fill out. Yeah.
And it would not be, or it would be improper for the community board when we're going out with our constituents and residents associations to take a supply of those along and encourage them to read and respond in their time?
Yeah, those people would be grateful to receive any and all submissions on that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Calvin?
Yeah, thanks for coming along, Ben. I actually got something in my rates bill today. It wasn't demand. So that's in there. That's hard copy. I can also congratulate council on for the whole weekend. Every time I went on Facebook, I got Sam popping up and then a little video of Sharon too. So I can congratulate council on being able to get on the electronic Facebook side of things, but that depends on people, one, being on Facebook, and two, it's not hard copy. So some people can't access that. So it's good that we're getting out there, but I think we could do a lot more. So thank you anyway, Ben.
Are there any further comments? Ben, is there anything further you just want to briefly add?
I'm just happy to have, like, if you send anything in or any comments or questions to help out with people, I'm happy to keep having those conversations. It's important that as many people are aware of it and can provide their feedback. So yeah.
If that's the case, on behalf of the board, again, very many thanks, Ben. I think the future is the important part of Selwyn. And as I said before, in introducing our two people here, they are the future.
Yeah, and it's not limited to over 18, so you guys can also submit and are welcome to do so as well. Yeah.
Right.
Can I just ask, would it be helpful if we got packs of those dropped out to Darfield to here tomorrow? Yes. Thank you. We'll arrange for that tomorrow and we can get them, you can pick them up here from tomorrow afternoon. Thanks, Ben.
Okay. Correspondence. Have we got some particular items of correspondence, have we?
Thanks, Thomas.
Is it? Okay.
Thank you. That was just the making sure that the board members' telephone numbers were correct in the long-term plan. And I can understand that it's probably a challenge if you don't have information in just one place and it's drawn from several places to keep it all up to date.
Yep. No, thank you. And it raises one of the challenges that we have in council in terms of we are not, believe it or not, for all that we use Facebook, we don't have a lot of electronic systems and information kept in centralized points. So I think from the long-term plan decision to support a digital strategy to upgrade our digital services, because at the moment it is very paper-based.
Thank you, Sharon. Move on to reports. They are all tabled. I will move my report. Is there a seconder? Thank you, John. Anybody, any questions at this stage? I think it's all pretty self-explanatory. I shall move the adoption of that. All in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Board member Shan there's an apology here for her. Her report is tabled also. Is somebody prepared to move that? Calvin, seconder, Phil? Is there any discussion on it? If not, I will. Sorry, Calvin, yes.
I'd just like to make a quick comment on Sean's work on the Waimak Gorge Bridge. She's really been looking into that and listening to the community on both sides of the bridge and responding to them and trying to support the community, both communities, because it's such a really key communication link. We need to maintain that.
Yeah, I would agree with that, but I think she has had response, be it from the council on that particular issue.
Yes, I understand she has. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions? If not, I will put her report. All in favour, please say aye. Those against, carried. Calvin.
Okay. Sorry, I'll move my report.
Thank you. Seconder, John. It's open for discussion. Calvin.
Okay, yeah, just generally it's listing the meetings. I'll go into one of the meetings that I have been to, additional to that list in a moment. And also, I was going to provide a verbal report on the financial statements, which I've already done with Tom, so there's no need to repeat that. There was one additional, I did put the 18th of July Future Selwyn workshop, which was the one that Bob was referring to. Unfortunately, I was unable to make it because of family reasons on Thursday. But what I did do was I came to the Darfield Residents Association AGM here in Darfield that later that evening. The meeting, the AGM went well, and that was followed by the water quality meeting. I went along to that meeting because it followed on, and also for personal reasons, purely personal reasons. I'm not representing the Malvern Community Board, but I was actually quite impressed with the meeting, and that it was nice. Nice is the wrong word. It was informative, and there was some. What I appreciated, it was mainly about nitrates and where they come from in water and where the concerns are. And I appreciated that information because I have my own borehole where there's potentially nitrate issues. So I thought it was a good, informative evening, and there was some good information there. We were there till nearly 10 o'clock, talking to people and scientists who seem to understand. Fortunately, we didn't have any farmers there or anybody else from that side, but maybe it's something we could consider as a board for the future to support something like that.
Thank you. Thank you, Calvin. And I'm quite sure those extra pieces will be added to his report. Thank you. I shall move the adoption of his report. Or John, do you want a question?
I'd just like to pass on to the Chief Executive that the feedback I had in relation to the answers provided to the questions asked was very much appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you for that. The motion before you that we accept Calvin's report. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. Thank you. John. Oh, I beg your pardon. Phil.
Yep, so just one little change on it. I just like the last part of it, the number 6 was supposed to be a line up.
Okay, with that, so you move your report.
Yeah, I'll just move my report.
Second up, John. Any further discussion on it? If not, I will put it. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried. John. Thank you. Second up, Calvin. Open for discussion. Are there any points that you want to bring forward, John, on it, or we just take your report as written?
Like on page 26 of the agenda, the community boards, that the previous meeting, there was an indication given that the board would be involved as the council worked through. So I was wondering whether the Chief Executive could give an update as to when that communication may begin.
You talked about the community halls. Yeah, I would expect that we've just appointed, a new, leader for that area who has been in the role for about 3 weeks now. And I anticipate that she will start some engagement around September or October.
Any further discussion?
The representation reviews. That, again, looking at the, report for the full council meeting, just draws to the board's attention that the 248 responses that were obtained from the Dartfield, mainly community, Sheffield, Springfield area, the report writer, in their words, said, while these were considered by staff and were part of the preliminary consultation analysis, they were treated with a degree of caution, as it was not evident if the respondents had also engaged the council channel, and it was also unknown in the manner in which they were collected. It came as a little bit of a surprise to me, as I personally delivered the information to the council headquarters and got the signature of a member of the senior management team. The 70 odd signatures that were obtained from Curry weren't even mentioned. So at least ours was accepted with a degree of caution. And it seems that when you look at the 229 that gave feedback through the electronic, that approximately 107 of those respondents gave no indication as to where they were, their address. And I know I'm not the brightest tool in the workshop, but it seems to me that if 107 out of 229 didn't give any identification details, how do we know that an eager beaver didn't get on and give 50 responses when they removed the requirement to register and have a password and identify yourself? So my point is that there's several inconsistencies. And I just wonder whether or not the information that's being provided to the council laws for their decision on the 24th is really fully informing them.
I'm just going to leave it as it is. We've discussed this morning at a separate meeting. And thank you for yourself and Phil coming in to have the conversation. And again, we just bring it back to that this is simply a preliminary consultation phase and the formal consultation has not yet begun. And that is the purpose of the next paper coming up, to have a formal consultation phase around community boards.
Thank you, Sharon. I'm prepared to put the motion now. All in favour of receiving the report from John? All say aye. Against, carried. Move on to Councillor Mugford.
I'd like to thank everyone that's been involved in the long-term plan. It's the second one I've been on, but using that, it was really good to see the community and get involved with it and have over 15 that really those people are really good. Part of what I did like about the most was really the 6,500 pages that came with it. But no, to me, it's been a really good exercise, and I think we learned a lot from it. And if we start looking back on other ones years ago, we got very good equipment. So it's great that way. The other thing is that from Sister City meeting, I was quite sure we talk about funding.
Would you move your verbal report? Second up, Phil. It's up for discussion. Any questions? If not, I'll put, sorry, Phil.
Yeah, just want to make a point. If it was a very successful LTP, it would have had no submissions. So by saying that it was a great one and you got lots of submissions means that there was lots of mistakes and lots of people weren't happy with it. So just as an anti-spin doctor, lots of submissions means that it wasn't actually that good of an LTP. So
Sorry, Phil, I'd have to disagree with that because if you looked at the data that came through, we deliberately went out and asked the community to engage, and we got positive feedback and we got negative feedback, and that for us is really good to hear the whole picture. So, not wanting to put spin on it, it is that we at least the community engaged, whether it was positive or negative feedback. And that was the most significant engagement we had, and we actively went out to seek that.
Yeah, Bob, would you make a comment, or you agree with our chief? Yes, yeah. And I would have some consideration towards that as well. I think we got, be it if we thought it was negative, I think at least we got the response. I think it's that's the thing. It'll depend now what happens from now on, though.
But,
I'll move. Sorry.
Could I just make one more comment on that successful consultation that we did? We got record responses on the long-term plan, as did Christchurch City Council, and I believe a number of other councils throughout the country who are doing long-term plans at a similar time. And my view is that the reason for that is because most councils in New Zealand right now are suggesting increased rates to double digits and beyond. And I think that's why we got the response, a massive response from the community, is because of those potentially quite large rate increases. And I think that's one of the key reasons. That's my personal view. Thank you.
Sharon?
Yeah, thank you for sharing your personal view. The rolled up data that came through, yes, there was a portion of our community that came through about the rates, but we had significant portion of people wanting to actually see progress in the district, and it is an absolute challenge without a doubt. But I think we were very clear about why some of the rate costs were as they were, and as we've always said, Selwyn is not unique compared to the rest of the country. But actually, the vast majority of the feedback that we had was our community wanting to see Selwyn continue to progress.
Thank you, sir.
John?
And I must come in and say that I really think it was quite a successful in parts, and you never get it successful 100%, especially the large number of people who submitted and provided feedback in relation to the Sheffield Memorial Pool. Obviously the council listened, and I think that's a good demonstration that community input and feedback can be successful. And I wish everybody well as they move on to the hard work for the next phase.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's fair comment. I think the thing is, though, that the council have been made aware that we'll wait for 3 years and see what the expectation has been obtained. Okay, I'll put the motion. All in favour, please say aye. Against? Carried.
Yep, thank you. It's the report is really for information. The public forum, we followed up with Mr. Snook, and really just there for your information, submissions that have gone through to NZTA and local government water services bill. We are finding a large number of submission requests coming out at very short notice with very tight turnaround timeframes. We have acknowledged to councillors that sometimes we're only getting two weeks to compile information, which is really challenging. And we're undertaking a lot of the submission work out of meeting cycle via email with councillors and getting retrospective endorsement from councillors, which is not the ideal way forward for any council, but it is what it is at the moment. And in terms of, just for your information, information that we've shared and have been endorsed by council around the Orion statement of intent and the Court statement of intent, can be read off the website, but I've attached them just for your interest and information into my report. And the final thing would be to say is that we've had a meeting with Kiwi Rail, and we're looking forward to a different kind of relationship with Kiwi Rail in terms of more strategic and enduring relationship. I think it would be fair to say historically council and Kiwi Rail have not had the best relationships, and we're looking to change that. So we've had some really good engaging conversations, and there's some really exciting opportunities afoot over the coming year and years with regards to investment by Kiwi Rail into this district. And hopefully we'll hear some announcements nearer to Christmas time, but we're really looking forward to that.
That's a big step forward. Do you want to, the appendix that are also attached, do you want to move those as part of your report as well? We include that in your report.
Everything in the report is for information purposes only. That includes appendices.
Thank you. You'll move your report. I will move your report. I will move your report. Is there a seconder? Thank you, Phil. Any discussion on it?
Yeah, I just got one question, Sharon, with the Kiwi Rail. So that's around iZone and the port, and then through to Arthur's Pass, through that rail corridor for tourism, or is it more strategic than that?
It's more strategic than that.
Right. Okay, awesome.
I'm sorry. It's nice to be able to say something's going, but I can't tell you in detail. It's their story to release, and they're aiming to do that around December.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
But I think it's very good to see that we've got cooperation from Kiwi Rail.
I think it's a desire to move our relationships away from transactional to more strategic and enduring. And I've always said since I've come to council and I've been out working with businesses, the key theme I heard was that relationship with council is transactional as opposed to a strategic and what would be considered full relationship. And that goes for many of the residents associations and the developers as well. And that's some of the work that I'm doing to make that shift.
Thank you. I'm prepared to John. Did you want to say something?
Yeah, it was just that our next meeting, and also the meeting time seems to have been reduced to an hour and a half. Can we make arrangements in future for meetings to be 2 hours?
You want to be that as part of the report? I don't believe that's part of Sharon's report. I believe that's a matter to bring up afterwards. If there's no further discussion on Sharon's report, all in favour that we receive it? Against? Carried. Right, now we move on to, I have one item here which you may have got. It was a late email that came regarding of the Willfield Rise. At this stage, they're getting to the stage where they want to, thank you, Chris, where they want to put some namings in. They have given us some here and the reasons why. So the names are there. Is everybody happy with the suggested names?
I'll move for option 1 be accepted.
Seconder? Phil? All in favour, please say aye. Right, okay,
Chair,
so that basically covers.
Just for the 2 new members of the team, can you just explain what the names were?
I'll do that at a later stage, I think at this stage, because time is running out with us. So if you're happy with that, all in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Right, now, there was one other item, wasn't it? What was the other item?
You wanted to talk about the invitation to Fonterra.
Oh, yes. Thank you. The invitation has been issued to Fonterra. It's just a matter of time and date, or give me some dates which I can communicate with them. And they are wishing to welcome us. Kelvin.
Could I just confirm which plant we're talking about? Is it Sinlay or Fonterra?
No, Fonterra up here. It's the factory at Darfield.
At Darfield. Okay, no, that's fine. No, I'm reasonably flexible, so I'll try and fit in with anybody else.
Okay, well, look, if it's okay with the board, I will get some suggested dates and times from them, and then I'll canvass the board, and we can go from there. Our two members here might wish to see that as well, so it just depends how we can work that in, with your school periods. Okay, if there's no further general business at this stage or nothing more, John?
Just meeting times, I feel that.
Yes, I beg your pardon. Yes, carry on.
That it's optimal to have a 2-hour period, and maybe if it's a matter of moving it forward to a 3:30 start or something like that, and I don't need an answer now, but if I can just raise that as an issue rather than having to rush through in an hour and a half. And the second one was that, is the August meeting going to be now that we're audio visual?
I don't know whether September in Springfield.
Okay, thank you.
We are limited though if we live stream things where we can physically hold meetings now, are we?
No, because we've got a mobile kit.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
However, we don't want to be hauling. We've got to be mindful that we've actually got access to the internet to be able to bring the kit out, which is a wee bit of a challenge. So got to weigh up the benefits.
But I think it's something that we do want to, because I think as we get closer to the end of our term, we will have other business to discuss. And I feel that we don't want to rush the meeting, but we are limited to a time factor. I don't want to inhibit discussions as long as they're concise and relevant. I'm not looking at you because of that, John. Okay, so Kelvin?
Could I make just a quick comment to our young people that have attended for the first time today? This is only our second meeting that we've been live on stream. So just for your information, you know that this is only the second time. Previous to that, it's all in a hard copy format. So it's actually difficult to read and understand sometimes. So you can now go online tonight. You can look at our last meeting and see how that went. And you can also look at yourselves on video by the look of it. I hopefully aren't on the video. But so you can do that now. So you can go live on your devices, have a look at it. It's recorded and maintained online as well for you. So it's really good. So yeah.
All right, thank you. Thank you. And I now declare the meeting closed.